How can they know what's going on in my mind? I have a mental illness that bought me some time. But I'm so tired of it all. Are they going to prove criminal intent with the law? Oh, I need to get ready. I got a few of these toilet paper rolls here. I want my ringlets to look extra special. They gotta look extra special, even though Chad's not gonna be there. I've got my ringlets going on, and I'm ready to go. I think I'm gonna bring out the glasses again like I did a while back. They make me look so sophisticated, you know? But as I get ready for this trial, I can't help but think how stupid everybody is that they actually think they can tell what's going on in my mind. I mean, the state of Idaho has to prove criminal intent. How in the heck are they going to be able to do that? You know, a little birdie came across the bars earlier in the day and sent me a little note saying there was this YouTube channel called KJ and the Ray. And I heard them on there. They told me some things that they think are going to prove it all. Gosh, I can't wait to get to this trial so that I can prove to everyone that I didn't know anything. What can they prove about my inner thoughts? My criminal intent? Well, Jill Pelliter said I ordered wedding rings before Tammy died. Well, I've got a logical reason for that, a reasonable doubt on that, you know? Chad was telling me that Tammy was going to die. I didn't think it was going to be murder. He told me that we were the king and queen and that we were going to be together. I mean, I moved to Idaho and everything just like he told me. I didn't know Tammy was going to be murdered. In fact, in my alibi, I was not even I was in Hawaii. I was so far away. There's no reason at all that they should be charging me with conspiracy to commit murder, Jill Pelliter. And Jay-Gaz's mom, oh my goodness. You want to bring up that I lied so many times? Like none of us has ever lied. I said Tylee was at BYU because Chad and Alex told me they had Tylee all somewhere very safe. And I didn't want to rock the boat. Chad said we didn't need to tell anybody. And I believed him. I would never harm Tylee. I had no idea. And after I was arrested, all the way up till I turned in my notice of alibi, it said that I'm not saying I knew then, but it says Tylee was murdered in my brother's apartment. Well, that's the only logical conclusion I can come up with. And what about I told everyone that JJ was going to be homeschooled? Well, this goes back again to what Chad and Alex told me to do. They're the men. They told me that I needed to come up with some good excuse. There's no way I would have ever wanted to see my JJ murdered. Again, my alibi is very clear. I wasn't even there. And I told police that JJ was at Frozen 2, Jay-Gaz's mom. Well, they came to my door. They knocked me off guard. And I just told them that because Chad and Alex told me that everything was fine, that the kids were safe somewhere. So I had to protect my king, and I didn't want my brother Alex to get in any kind of trouble. It was none of anybody's business where my children were. I had full custody of them. I would have never in a million years thought that they would have been murdered. I believed my king. And then Jagaz's mom says I refused to tell the world at my arraignment that I wasn't guilty. And that goes back to Chad. Chad didn't have a problem going, I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty. But let me tell you, the bottom line is it was beneath me. I knew I didn't murder my children. Why should I even say anything? I provoked my right to remain silent. There's no reason to say I'm not guilty. My attorneys did the talking for me. And Tina Reddington. I took off after the welfare check. Well, Melanie P., she in her interview, she said that it was a planned move, just as I told everyone. It was a planned move. And I didn't want anyone to find my children. I didn't think they were murdered. I thought they were off somewhere safe. And Chad convinced me that it was all about us now and that the children needed to go on to a different life, not dying or being murdered. And this whole thing, Tina Reddington, about my disappearing acts, well, that tells you right there. You can look at my history. I always cut tail and run, not because of anything I'd done wrong. I just didn't want to play a part in it. Don't you understand? And Kathy Benya, I'm the master planner, really. Really. Archie and I sat down and talked about this. Chad was hot on my trail since day one, and he's the one that convinced me that he had the plan in place. He's the one that told me about light and dark and all of those things. I thought the children were somewhere where they could get better. We tried praying them away, and yes, there's a little bit of proof about Charles Ballo there that I just wanted to see him get help. Kathy Benya, I'm not the master planner. And Mickey Kiker, I was trying to convince everyone JJ was a zombie. Well, Mickey, JJ, Chad was telling me these things, and, I've got a mental illness, and I was so worried about it. I got so paranoid because he kept telling me that JJ was dark and all of these things. And I just, besides that, this whole thing about JJ being a zombie and the cabinets and him knocking a picture of Jesus off, whose testimony is anyone going to believe? Melanie Gibb, David Warwick? My attorney's going to chew her up and spit her out, and him too. Just because they said that in Chad's preliminary hearing doesn't mean it's true. Come on. Chad and Alex took JJ somewhere that day we went. We went to look at that real estate, and then that evening I was doing a podcast. Now, if I thought my son had been murdered or was going to get murdered, how could I do a podcast? Really. And Jerry Crouch, many people have burner phones. Don't you understand? Just because someone has a burner phone, that doesn't make somebody guilty of murder. If that's I used them because they were economical. I could just, I had several of them. And there were certain people I wanted to talk to and others that I didn't. And because everybody was in my business, I had to have these burner phones. And K-Tech, I lied and hid from the beginning. Well, wouldn't you? Everybody would leave me alone. I I did nothing wrong. And lying and hiding doesn't mean I murdered my children, K-Tech. I will have reasonable answers for it all. And how will the state prove the case against me when they can't get into my mind? I am evil and diabolical, don't you know? And being evil and diabolical, I will have answers for everything. All it takes is one juror, just reasonable doubt. Hello, everyone. KJ here. I'm trying to prove a point. You know, that's all a crock of shit. It is. But I'm trying to tell y'all now that Lori is going to have an answer, just as Jodi Arias and all these other murdering people in the world. How about Alex Murdaugh? He had every damn answer known to man. Did he? Did he convince a jury? No. But could Lori? Lori has to take the stand. I'm telling y'all, she has to take the stand. She's going to, in my opinion. I believe that's the only way that she thinks that she can put this off on Alex and Chad. If she sat over at the defense table and did not take the stand, there's just too much that Archie cannot overcome. She's going to have to take the stand, y'all. And we're going to go over criminal intent tonight, y'all, in a way that I think y'all are going to find interesting. Because how do we get into the mind of a diabolical, evil hussy? How do we do that? How will jurors see all of this? Good evening, everyone. Gloria Fritz, Kathy Benya, T.S. Jackson 72, Haunted, Philly, Kathy, love you, Mama Bear, Vivian Lundgren, Sugar Magnolia. Y'all go to Crescia K. Easton's Difficult Research. She's just released an interview with Kay and Larry Woodcock with Vinnie Politan. I put it on the community wall. Y'all, it's a great interview. I hope you'll get to it as soon as possible. Hello, Anna Brown, San Willow, Kim Top. Thank y'all so much for being here this evening. And I want to start off by dovetailing into this little skit. Lori really believes she can talk her way out of this. And even if she didn't take the stand, y'all, she's going to give Archie all the answers to everything. They've already looked at Chad's preliminary hearing. They've already looked at it all. And for them to come out in the alibi that she didn't know that the children were murdered and that she had her alibi, she was in the apartment or in Hawaii. Y'all, let me just make this clear. We're starting foundation, base level, leading up to the trial. March 15th at 9:30 a.m., that's this Wednesday, y'all, Archie's motions will be heard. They will be heard. We're talking about taking the death penalty off the table. We're talking about the motion in limine to exclude and iron out pretrial evidence of not wanting the state, y'all. Archie does not want that 13th discovery disclosure in the trial. That's going to get ironed out. And this is very important, y'all. Dr. Wellner. Remember, religiosity and versus justifying murder through your belief system. If there is no mental health defense, then the state cannot introduce expert testimony of not having mental illness, says Archie. That's going to be ironed out this Wednesday. And by the way, there's a transport order. She's going to be there. Also, the motion to compel. Is the state caught up on all their discovery, y'all? Because Archie lists in his his motions there about taking the death penalty off the table, saying the seriousness of a capital case, that there are some discovery problems that's happened with the state. We're going to find out on Wednesday, y'all. Also, think about this, y'all. This is big news. You got March the 25th. What is March the 25th? There is a transport order for Lori to be taken to Ada County Jail, where she will await trial, y'all. Think about that. We are almost to this trial. Can y'all believe it? Transport order. She will be in Ada County March the 25th. That's where she'll be for the duration of this trial. And we all know her ass is headed to prison. One way or the other, that's what's going to happen. So, updating everything foundationally, here it is, y'all. Listen up. John Thomas said to Judge Boyce, quote, "We don't believe the state is going to be able to prove Lori was a major contributor to the crimes. We don't actually believe Lori participated in any of these events." He should have said murders. She didn't participate in any of these events, or that she even knew about them. And she didn't anticipate them happening, and certainly did not participate in them. That's her defense's posture for this trial. They are saying that Lori didn't know shit. Well, all hell's gonna break loose. The state's position is as follows. Lindsay Blake says, quote, "Sufficient evidence existed for the grand jury to find the defendant, Lori Daybell, intended for her children and Tammy Daybell to die. Further, there is sufficient evidence for a jury to conclude that the defendant participated in the killings of her own children. The facts of this case are egregious and heinous. The evidence the state will introduce at trial, some of which have already been reviewed by the grand jury, will show that Lori Daybell intended for her children and boyfriend's wife to die, and that she affirmatively acted to make those deaths happen." There are your defenses and your prosecution stands, y'all. That's what we're looking at. And so, knowing what we know about her alibi, knowing that Archie takes this position and Thomas takes this position, we've got to really wonder how in the world, everything that we've seen, the things that y'all, the Rays on here that commented on the community wall, about the wedding rings, about all the lies, all of those things, they're going to have to find an answer to. And again, this goes back to, what reasonable excuse does Lori have? Criminal intent over everything else. Baseline. Everything that has to happen from there, that has to be proven. In order for it to be a crime, the act must usually be accompanied by general criminal intent, which is willfully and knowingly doing something that is wrong. And I asked a lot of y'all on the community wall, I said, do y'all think Lori knows right from wrong? The accused must be shown to have the mental capacity to form criminal intent. Otherwise, she cannot be held responsible. And we know there's a difference between that and just basic competency, like understanding what a judge is, to take an active role in her defense. The bottom line is that she meets that criteria, in my opinion, simply because she is competent. She does know right from wrong. If she thought it was not wrong, she wouldn't have lied about it, says Crowdsource Illuminations. Good point. Maria P. says Lori didn't know anything was happening because she was locked in her closet portal. Oh, Lord. I think she had hands on in the deaths of her children, says Tom Vaughn. And Tom Vaughn, that's a very, very chilling thing to say. I do believe she was hands on with JJ. I hate to say it. Tylee, on the other hand, I don't think Lori even put herself there because she knew Tylee would beat her ass. Tylee could have taken Lori. Pure and simple. They had to take Tylee out so that Tylee would not be someone that would tell anyone what happened to Charles Vallow. And of course, Tylee wasn't going to go along with all her bullshit, her being the queen and all that. You know it. I know it. Cops come to my house looking for my kids. My response is, let's load up and go find them, says Haunted. Yeah, Haunted. The bottom line is that we're looking individually what we would do, you know? And that goes back to reasonableness, the reasonableness of any of this. Now, criminal intent, I just defined it for you. Now we're going to apply it. If the state clearly proves criminal intent, y'all, if they can prove criminal intent of Lori, then her religious beliefs become a non-issue. The religious beliefs really does not, I mean, you know, hey, many of y'all think that was the driving force, to each their own opinions. But when we're talking about a court of law, criminal intent, all right, that's the forming of knowing something's right or wrong and acting on it. Criminal intent, seeing it through, regardless of what motivated it, okay? So to me, criminal intent has to be proven, and it can be inferred, healthy inferences through the actions of Lori. In other words, it would be like Lori saying, in my mind, I thought I was doing right because of my beliefs. Or, in my mind, says Lori, I thought I was doing wrong. And no one can pull that out of her head. She can go on the stand and say, I didn't think I was wrong. I thought I was doing the right thing. But that's her testimony. She's going to say whatever she wants to say to get out of trouble. So what is a jury to do? And how does the state lay out their case? They do it, obviously, through the actions. Because that's all you have to look for. Just as Lori would think nobody could know what's going on in her mind. Right and wrong, y'all. Right and wrong. What actions from Lori show that she knows right from wrong? Let's talk about it. How do we know? How can we look at Lori and say, okay, the simple basic question is, how can we prove that she knows right from wrong? Well, I mean, you know, let's look at it then. Look at her upbringing. She's never really been in any real trouble other than contempt of court. Her religion, her baseline religion, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, has plenty of things in there telling you what's right and what is wrong. But if you want to put that aside, ignorance of the law, not spiritual law, not God's law, we're talking about man's law. Ignorance of it is not an excuse. So she can't say, I didn't know that when the police came to my doorstep that, I thought I was trying to keep my kids safe by lying to them about where they were because Chad told me that they were safe and I didn't want to see Chad get in trouble. My intent was not to break the law and lie to police. My intent was to keep my children safe, you see. But you need a consciousness of guilt. The consciousness of guilt. First of all, I just don't see, even though we don't know what Lori's mental health diagnosis is, if she's competent, then she has to know bare bones what right and wrong is. I mean, it's common sense that when you conspire to murder people, and even if you hands-on murder your children, even if you thought and you justified it, right? You justified it through your religion. The bottom line is it's wrong. The consciousness of guilt would obviously be that she lied. I mean, this goes back to what many of y'all said. If she didn't think she'd done anything wrong, then she shouldn't be lying. This reminds me of Alex Murdaugh. He didn't have to tell everyone that he wasn't at the kennels. He could have told them that from the get-go. But he didn't. He lied about it. And the jury could draw a healthy inference that He lied about something really major, and so did Lori. And we could probably go down a laundry list of many different cases where people lied, and it really goes back to why did they lie, and was their lying, was the intent to cover up a crime? Was it something else? The state is going to lay all this out. Behaviors that lean or infer towards believing something was right, that Lori can show through her actions. She thought she was saving her kids. This will have to only be brought out if she takes the stand. Because how could the defense bring it out if the state's laying out their witnesses there and the defense cross-examines them? How can the defense bring forth that she didn't, that her actions, that she thought she was saving her kids, right? It goes back to this whole thing, well, JJ, she was saying JJ was dark, or Tylee was dark, and all this and that. Well, just because Lori thought that doesn't mean that she said we need to murder them, right? And I only say these things to open us up for our thinking on this, because ultimately, y'all, the 12 members of that jury, along with the alternates, they're going to have to listen to this, and they're going to have to, in the jury instructions, which we'll go over, they're going to have to find criminal intent. They're going to have to find it. Now, behaviors that lean or infer to her believing something is wrong. And that, again, is lying, not telling anyone where the children are. Why would she do that? Her explanation could be, I didn't want anyone to know where the children were. I didn't think they were murdered and dead. I just didn't want everyone. I was protecting Chad. And now I was duped. He lied to me. I put that stuff in the storage, folks. I'm Lori. I put it in the storage. If I thought they were dead, why even do that? I thought the kids were fine, that we would meet up again. Chad and I were going to go and do this divine wedding on the Hawaiian beach. And then we were going to eventually come back. You know, this is just for sake of argument, y'all. It's going to come up in the trial, okay, because of the murder indictment, the religious beliefs of Lori. It's just going to come up. And Archie doesn't want anyone to talk about that this is anything other than, he doesn't have to come out and say it, but when they explain her religious beliefs, the jury obviously are going to think, damn, there's something wrong with this woman. And that's what Archie wants. But Archie doesn't want the state to rebut that with the Dr. Wellner, who can come up there and say, well, y'all might be thinking her religious beliefs are crazy and all this and that, but I'm going to tell you, regardless of what this woman believes, what she did was evil. She was an evildoer. She did that. And I can show you a difference between religiosity and justifying something through your religious belief. The state is going to be allowed this Dr. Wellner, y'all. That's my opinion. What was going on in her mind when she was engaging in criminal behavior? And she was. I mean, we think of the murders and everything, but let's step aside and look at the lesser charges she has. What was she thinking when she continued to get JJ's Social Security benefits and commit Social Security fraud? Can she say I was saving the money up for when we got back together? Can she prove that she didn't think that she was doing anything wrong? And by the way, I didn't tell the Social Security Administration that, anything was wrong, because I didn't think there was anything wrong. I thought the kids were still alive. They were just off somewhere. Chad and Alex convinced me. Y'all, I'm telling you, she's got to go there. If you look at her alibi and you look at her position, that she did not participate, that she didn't know they were murdered. That's an uphill climb for sure. But the evidence that the state's going to present, they're going to have an answer whether it's crazy or not. That's what they're going to do. She doesn't come across looking like the Parkland school shooter, where something was obviously wrong with him, she's too prideful. Maria P. says she still wanted to be called Mrs. Daybell in court after knowing the kids were dead. She always struts into court with a smile instead of crying for her dead kids. And that's a good point, Maria P., because what is going to be brought into the trial for that? Since her incarceration, and the way that she's acted, are the jury members going to get to see that? Have they already seen these pre-trial hearings where before they cut the cameras out of the way she behaved? You can't unsee something like that. And, the only thing that I could say, and, in terms of that is she could say, if it is brought out by the state, well, I didn't do anything wrong. And this is all Chad and Alex. What do I have to be upset about? I've already lost my kids. I will not be called a murderer when I didn't do it. So I am just absolutely just incensed. So much so, this is such a joke that they would think that I would do this. She's going to come up with some kind of answer. Whether she knew or not wasn't her obligation as their mother to know they were safe. She can lie all she wants. The truth is as clear as day. And Julie Wilburn, that is a hurdle Lori will not be able to overcome. This goes back to the mother of these children. And y'all, I'm just throwing these hypotheses out here about how she's going to react to all this. The bottom line is she's going to say, I would have never allowed my children to be murdered or killed. I would have never allowed that. And if she took the tack, well, I knew that they had been killed, but I thought they were on another planet, that the evilness was out of them now and they could go on to be free. How can she bring that up in a trial with no mental health defense? This is strategic for Archie, because when they lay out her beliefs, if she does go there, if she says, oh, Chad told me the children had to be released from all this, and I loved my children so much, and I just didn't want to see it happen to them. And Alex and Chad, they said that, through Chad is divine, seeing beyond the veil power, that he was able to, he had some energy healing stuff going too, and they just didn't make it. And I thought that what I was doing was the right thing for them because of my religious beliefs. Y'all, it all comes down to what was going on in her mind. And then you take that, and then you have to ask the question, did she also have criminal intent? Did she know that what she was doing was wrong? We know the answers in our view. But again, y'all, the defense is going to have a defense. And this is something that we need to get ready for. We're going to absolutely be disgusted about how Archie and Thomas are going to lay out this case. The way they're going to come at the state's witnesses, you're going to know. You're going to know how they're going to frame this. Again, this whole idea of Melanie Gibb and David Warwick going on the stand, and you've got Melanie P. on the witness list. You have other members that could possibly, April Raymond or Christina Atwood, or you just don't know. I don't know if they're going to update this list or not, but the bottom line is the jury's never going to believe someone like Melanie Gibb. And if anyone thinks, well, KJ, she and David Warwick testified at Chad's preliminary hearing, y'all, they didn't have to testify there for it to be bound over for Chad Daybell. There was too many FBI agents, Hermosillo, all of them, the body cam, all of these things, the recordings, all of these things, they didn't need Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. And again, whether you believe her or not, Melanie Gibb or David Warwick, who's to say that story about JJ knocking down the picture of Jesus was even real? I mean, for all I know, They got up that morning knowing good and damn well that JJ had been murdered, and they just come up with something. Melanie Gibbs on the record lying to police. You think that a jury member is going to believe anything that they have to say? The state is going to have to tread on this lightly. Would there be evidence, whether witness testimony, now stop, the evidence of witness testimony, who's going to testify for the state, or exhibits such as the audio recordings, text from Lori that infer that show quite clearly her mens rea. Remember what mens rea is? Whether she had a guilty mind. Because if it's all just about she lied, there can be reasons, reasonable reasons, that this woman in the past, that her history of, just as Tina Reddington says, she does a disappearing act. Maybe Lori will say, I did a disappearing act. I wanted people to get away from my children, and I put them, Chad and Alex put them somewhere safe, and I went off to Hawaii so people would look at me or look off in another direction and not find out where I thought my children were. Y'all are going to hear it. A guilty mind. Does Lori got one? And if you put aside her lying, you have to ask the question, what evidence? And I'm not saying there isn't. I just want to prepare us for this trial. And everyone knows children do things at times. Doesn't mean anything other than their children and acting up at times. Usually when you're visiting or so, says Deadly Queens. And Sam Willis says, we're already disgusted by the motion to dismiss the death penalty, trying to shock by writing that killing Lori is akin to witch burning. And he can frame it any damn way he wants. Like I said, this woman is far beyond anyone being a witch. You know, there are people in this day and time, y'all, that actually believe that's their belief system. And there are people out here, women specifically, and I'm sure some men too, but mostly women, that think they're witches that wouldn't dare harm a head on anybody. And, you know, so I don't know where Archie, he's just trying to blow this out of proportion. I don't know. It was a photo, it was a photo of a model pretending to be Jesus, and she used that as a reason for murder. Sam Willis says witches are midwives. Interesting. Let's see. I have a feeling Archie surely knows they don't have a chance of winning this case. Well, all again, y'all, I know y'all don't want to hear this, but the bottom line is all it takes is one. A reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt. And again, I haven't always been right, but I can tell you this right now, Lori Daybell is taking the stand. Y'all heard it here. I'm not wrong about this. She's taking the stand. She's been biting at the bit all this time. She wants everyone to know she thinks she can talk her way out of this. She thinks she can put this all off on Chad. That's what she's going to try to do anyway. Idaho has a drumbeat to return to a firing squad. It is within possible outcome Chad and Lori could face that dreadful end to their life, says Mark McGarry. Well, in Archie's motion that we went over in the last video that I had, he said that she wouldn't be under the new rule, or the old rule, and that, you know, they're still trying to figure out how to execute this man after 35 years on death row. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, y'all, East Idaho News, well, it was the Idaho Statesman, had come out talking about giving information on stuff that we've gone over before about, you know, competency issues and stuff. And many of y'all think that maybe at the last minute she's going to wig out, you know, and they'll have to send her back up to the damn facility up there. No, y'all, I don't think that's going to happen. I think she's ready to go. I think she's made her alibi very clear. Archie and Thomas both says she didn't participate. She didn't know. She didn't know that her children had been murdered, y'all. Can you even wrap your head around that? Can you? I think so too. Just like posing for her picture, loading up to the return to jail, she will have to be seen, says Sugar Magnolia. Julia Wilburn, even if you try to think of one, what the heck reasonable doubt could they possibly come up with? When you ain't got Chad sitting at that table with her, this is exactly the reason, y'all. This is exactly the reason why I wanted them tried together. I also did try to put a little glimmer of hope in that when they got severed by saying, in some ways, it's good that he's not there because the jury member might look and say, there's the other one sitting at the table. And this could go on, right here where they're throwing each other under the bus together at the same table each time. Now you ain't got Chad anywhere in sight. And yes, the state's got to talk about Chad. But again, this goes back to reasonable doubt. Could a juror, without hearing Lori testify, now I believe she's going to testify, but could a juror, without hearing Lori testify, come to the conclusion that she did not have any criminal intent at all? This will depend on her testimony or that Archie's able to poke holes in the state's case. Specifically, it's not going to look good for the state at all to put Melanie Gibb and David Warwick on the stand. That's just not. I told y'all that and we thought, well, it ran kind of smooth at Chad's preliminary hearing. Remember, before his preliminary hearing, we knew they were going to go on the stand for the state, and I thought, what the hell's the state's thinking? Well, that went on by. We're going to find out. But let's look very quickly here because this is important. They haven't picked a jury yet. We haven't gotten through any of that. They're mailing out these. They've already mailed out, I'm sure, the jury questionnaire, which I'll cover in a different pre-record. It's a little more boring on that end of things, but I do want to cover it. And we haven't gotten to voir dire yet, but I want to home in on this for y'all. Because when this trial happens, y'all are going to see that we are all ready. It's clicking right along. We understand. It'll come back up in our mind. Yes, we talked about this. We're going to look at conspiracy, the Idaho criminal jury instruction on conspiracy. In order for the defendant to be guilty of conspiracy, the state must prove each of the following. Number one, on or about the date, okay? So they give a wide range in the indictment. So I ain't concerned about that. Number two, in the state of Idaho, jurisdiction matters, y'all. They're going to be able to find that. A jury member can check that off for conspiracy. Number three, the defendants, which are Chad, Lori, and then known and unknown, which is Alex Cox, which, by the way, he's going to be discussed as well by the state. Agreed. They all agreed, okay? The state is going to have to prove that Lori and Chad at this point, and Alex to some extent, they agreed to have a conspiracy to murder JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, okay? They've got to show this. The state is going to have to lay out evidence through exhibits and witness testimony that they agreed. We're not talking about they find a text message and Lori says, yes, Chad, I want the children to be murdered. It's going to be complex. It's going to be complicated. But the state is going to be able to weave it together, in my view. And the next thing is to commit the crimes, that they agreed to commit crimes, and y'all know what the crimes in the indictment say. Each one of those, the conspiracy to commit murder on JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, they agreed. 2 or more, right? The defendant intended that at least one of the crimes would be committed, okay? at least one of the crimes would be committed, at least the defendant intended for it to happen. And again, this goes back to Lori. Lori's saying she didn't even know that the children had been murdered. So how can Lori intend for her children and Tammy to be murdered? Right? I'm laying this out so that y'all can understand. It's not that I think that the state can't prove this. I'm just letting y'all know. Also, that one of the parties to the agreement, Chad, Lori, Alex, performed. Okay? They at least performed one of the following acts listed, alleged in the charging instrument. They had to do at least one thing. Let me put it to you this way, okay? This will probably make you laugh. When it comes to a crime, okay, say indecent exposure, all right? Me and Wayne, we decided we're going to go to a public beach, okay? And I told Wayne on the way there, I'm like, honey, take all your clothes off. I want you to run down the beach naked. Let's go to this beach over here. I'm going to drive us to it. And I'm telling you now, by the way, I told you before that in a text message that, hey, let's do something fun and exciting, something spontaneous. I dare you, Wayne, to run down the beach naked, okay? And he does that. I conspired with him to commit the misdemeanor crime of indecent exposure. I wasn't the naked one. I didn't get naked. In fact, I sat in the car as I watched his little white ass run down to the damn beach, down the beach there. But I conspired to commit the crime by doing certain actions. And the state's going to bring this out, y'all. And by the way, I'd love to see Wayne run down the beach naked, but I wouldn't want to do anything to break a law, you know. Maybe we could do it when nobody's around. Okay. But then again, y'all, what if we went and I said, honey, I want to see you run down the beach and naked, and we went to a nudist colony. That wouldn't be breaking the law, would it? You see, it's all about one of the parties to the agreement performed at least one of the following acts, list acts alleged in the charging document, and we saw that in the indictment, what Lori and Chad both were doing. Example being, I know Lori's trial's coming up, we should focus on her, but for instance, Chad, he basically talked about Viola and how her time's fixing to come and all this stuff before she was murdered. Things of that sort. If any of the above has not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant not guilty. If each of the above have been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, you must find the defendant guilty. So that's conspiracy. But here are people in Idaho law, y'all. Y'all listen up. And this is going to be bared out one way or the other. These are the people that do not and cannot be held criminally responsible. This is Title 18, Crimes and Punishments, Chapter 2, Persons Liable, Principles, and Accessories. 18-201, Persons Capable of Committing Crimes. All persons in Idaho are capable of committing crimes except those belonging to the following classes. All right, so there are people. They say there are people, everyone in Idaho can commit a crime except for these people. Number one, persons who committed the act or made the omission charged under an ignorance or mistake of fact which disproves any criminal intent. So we're talking about committed the act, but and they said, yeah, I did it, but they were under ignorance. They didn't know. Just as Lori's saying she didn't know her kids were murdered. I'm not saying she's not going to. I'm just trying to give you an example here. Or mistake of fact which disproves any criminal intent. Number two, persons who committed the act charged without being conscious thereof. Okay, well, I guess it's possible that somebody could be asleep and they might have a gun under their pillow, and maybe in their sleep they wasn't conscious and they pulled the trigger, creating someone to get shot, and that would be manslaughter. If they weren't conscious, but then again, you'd have to prove that, right? Another way that someone is not capable legally of committing a crime is persons who committed the act or made the omission charge through misfortune or by accident, when it appears that there was not evil design, intention, or culpable negligence. And we know that what Lori did, it was by evil design. We do know that she had the intention to murder her children, and she conspired to murder Tammy. She had the intention for that. And she definitely had culpable negligence, i.e., she was the mother. So she doesn't get any consideration in this code anyway. And finally, persons, unless the crime by punishable of death, y'all, who committed the act or made the omission charge under threats or menaces sufficient to show that they had reasonable cause to believe that their lives would be endangered if they refused. It says here, persons unless the crime be punishable by death. So this would not apply, but let's just go, and for sake of argument, it would mean that Lori would have to say Chad told her, if you don't let me take these kids and kill them, or if Alex said, Lori, you're going to have to die if you don't let me take these kids. You see? And let's not forget, Archie had talked about a while back. Remember, he wanted to talk about domestic violence and all this? Give me a break, y'all. The nature of conspiratorial agreement, which is Idaho Criminal Jury Instruction 1103. The crime of conspiracy involves an agreement by two or more persons to commit a crime. They need not agree upon every detail. The agreement may be established in any manner sufficient to show an understanding of the parties to the agreement. It may be shown by evidence of an oral or written agreement, or may be implied from the conduct of Lori Daybell. Again, we could go down a series of all the actions this woman took. If you put her lying aside, just put the lying part aside, what do you got left? What do you have? You have other things. But put the lying aside and look at everything else. Because, folks, she can come up with all kinds of reasons why she lied. She could explain that she was tired of being badgered about her children. In fact, on the body cam, she talked about, I've got full custody of these kids. Why won't people leave me alone? She could say these things. Not that it'll fly, but she's not going to come out of left field with, I let the children go somewhere with Chad and Alex because, and I didn't think they were murdered because Chad said that it's just him and I. If she's going to say that Chad and Alex wanted to take the kids somewhere safe and she didn't know they were murdered, she's got to give a reason why she allowed her parental hold, her parental guidance to release and give her parental notification, her agreement as a parent to allow her brother or her king control over those children. She's got to answer that question to a juror. Lori, if this indeed was Chad and Alex, why? Why would you give the children to them? For what reason would you allow this? You see, if you can if you can pass a driver's test, book flights, live day to day on your own, you know right from wrong. Great point, Nancy Browning. That's another thing I know, that the jury, that's reasonable people, common sense. Jury members are going to see. The state will lay it out. Lori was the damn frequent flyer. She did all these things. Just as one of you talked about, I forgot who you are, but you know who you are, about her being the master planner. She's going to come up with, oh, it was all Chad that was planning all this. And Alex was listening to Chad and all this and that. And I was just going along because, you know what? I grew up believing that the man's the one that takes control. I'm the one that, you know, I'm below a man. It's the way it's supposed to be, you know? You'll see how it unfolds. She knew right from wrong, otherwise she would not have multiple burner phones. Well, Donna Donald, again, just as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of people in this world that have burner phones. Doesn't mean that they're doing criminal activity. It doesn't. Remember Tylee talked about her mom looked like a drug dealer? Well, you can't just put someone in a category just because they have more than one burner phone. She could very well say the reason I had a burner phone is because, yes, I was committing adultery on Charles Vallow and I didn't want him to find out. She can come up with all kinds of reasons. But this whole bullshit that she would relinquish her legal and moral and ethical decision making as a mother has to Chad and Alex is going to be the elephant in the room. Hiding is lying, says Donna Donald. Well, Lori, she could probably say things like, I wasn't hiding, doing anything criminal or trying to run from something that I did criminally wrong. I was trying to get away from people that were trying to harm me, to try to take my children away from me. Y'all, I'm just giving y'all for sake of argument, because honestly, y'all, the reason I'm doing this is because she is going to have a defense. She's going to have it. And you know, we've all talked about it. There's no way she can get out of this. But I want to be prepared, and I hope you are as I am and ready to hear the crap that's going to be laid out for her. Still, she filed her alibi that states she was in her apartment when the children were murdered, so she can't say she didn't know when they were killed. Sam Willow, she filed that alibi after the fact. She's not admitting that she knew her children were killed. There's no way Archie would put that in an alibi, especially if their position is she didn't know they were even murdered. What happened, at least, and we know different, but this is how, yes, it's in the alibi, but it's not saying she confirms that she knew they were murdered, because obviously, you heard me tell you what Thomas said. She didn't participate. She didn't know they were murdered. If he's coming out with that, then why would she know before? You know, why would she be confessing it now? She says she's not guilty. If she confessed it in her alibi, then she is guilty, but that's not how it's being read. What she's doing is she's trying to make people believe that after the fact, she's looking at the whole situation. I had no idea the children were murdered, but I have to think about those days, September 8th and 22nd and 23rd, and the only thing I can think is that they were at Alex's, because they weren't at Chad's. You see, she's not confessing. She's not, in her alibi, she's not confessing she knew beforehand. She's just saying that's what in fact, in her alibi, she says that she was in her apartment, the kids were murdered at her brother's, but she's saying that's the only thing that she can think that is what happened. So she is putting it off on Alex. She's not saying, hey, the kids were at Alex's and Alex murdered them, although she's inferring that. Plus, Chad and Lori on video moving JJ's stuff into storage before Hawaii. Well, Kathy Benya, Archie and Thomas are going to come out and they're going to say, if Lori knew that JJ had been murdered and he was dead, why not just throw away their stuff? Why not throw it away? Throw it in a dumpster. Throw it somewhere. Why did they put it in a storage unit? Why do that? Why hold on to the albums and the blankets? Why hold on to their winter clothes? How about their scooters and stuff? Why would she do that? And nobody wants to hear me talk about it, but really, there's got to be a reason why she did that. Only explanation I can come up with is that she'd been putting all those things in the house so people, or outside the house, the scooter and stuff, to make people think they were still there when they weren't. And then they moved it into the storage unit when I think Chad brought his kids over to Lori's and she baked cookies for them. So maybe, but then the kids, they didn't they know that Lori at one time had been she was an empty nester. In other words, she did have children at one time. K-Tech says, so she's implying they both died the same night. No, she's not. Obviously, I don't think that's it at all. She can't say that when they've got the evidence of the Yellowstone picture and all that. She knows what the state has. She knows what's out there. She knows what has happened at Chad's preliminary hearing. What I'm saying is this woman, this damn hussy, has said she's not guilty. And so when you read in her alibi that they were at Alex's apartment, this is her talking after the fact. She's not going to come out and say she knew they were being murdered over at Alex's. Then what happens then? Then she does get convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. That's, I think a lot of people, I even thought for a minute, I'm like, why is she saying that they were at Alex's? And that's where they were murdered, And then, of course, y'all, her alibi for Tammy is that she was in Hawaii with this Audrey woman and Melanie P. You know what's interesting about that? Audrey's on the witness list to testify for the state, and we know she pled the Fifth Amendment at the grand jury, but then she basically shit her pants with FBI interviews because whatever she said about Chad and Lori, or especially Lori, Archie says is false, so it has to be something bad. But think about it like this. You think the defense isn't going to ask her, hey, if you were in Hawaii with Lori and, and she didn't have her children with her, and hey, how about you, Melanie P.? You were Lori's alibi during the time Tammy was being murdered. But what about those children, Audrey? What about those children, Melanie P.? Where were they? Where were they? Did Lori tell you while y'all were sitting sipping little drinks with little umbrellas that the kids were at K's, or that Tylee was at BYU? Interesting, is it not? Karen Holland says, I think both her and Chad are going to throw Alex under the bus. I think that Lori is trying to say that she herself had no idea that the children were murdered, so it has to be Alex and Chad. It has to be. You think Lori's going to take up for her freaked out brother? He's not here to defend himself. She's going to put it off on Alex, but she's also going to put it off on Chad. She's already proved that by saying the children were in Alex's apartment. This is what she thinks happened after the fact. And you got to wonder, really, you got to wonder when she sits down with Archie and Thomas, for them to come out and say she didn't know they had been murdered, what could she possibly say to them? Because they, obviously, as defense attorneys, are going to want to believe her. And I mean believe her like technically they have to give her the robust defense that any defendant deserves. Julie Wilburn makes a great point. She's had years now to come up with this story. And so did Jodi Arias. And she had an answer for everything. This all goes back to, we can get lost in the weeds. They endorse and espouse religious beliefs for the purpose of murder. The overt acts listed in the indictment of the things they did. But it really comes down to criminal intent. And all of that stuff can lend itself toward the criminal intent. It's almost like, here's the criminal intent, and this is the reasoning and the actions around that criminal intent that we can see as jurors. The bottom line is Lori is in for it. She's in for it. Valerie Moore says, I can't wait to see if the DNA is Lori and Chad or Chad's. Plus, remember, when Alex said to Zulema he thinks he's their fall guy. Well, all right, let's look at that. Lori wants to put this all off on her dead brother, Alex. And then down the road, when Chad has his trial, he puts it off on Alex. And it's Lori and Chad saying it was all Alex. There's no way. It would have to be Lori would think that it was Alex and Chad working together, or Chad would say it's Lori and Alex working together. It would not just be Chad and Lori both are saying Alex must have done this, and we had no clue that Alex would do this. I think Alex did this, says Lori, because he saw how much I loved Chad, and he knew that Chad had, given him this blessing and wanted him to go on with the Zulema, and he just wanted to clear the way for it. It was supposed to be destiny. Give me a break, y'all. Mark McGarry says the digital evidence in Chad's journal and hard drive. Very good point. We're going to find out a lot about it. There's not a single bit of evidence that I believe that the state's going to lay out in Lori's trial that's not going to show the conspiracy between Chad and Lori and Alex. There's not going to be a trial for Lori where only her actions are dissected and looked at in terms of whether she's guilty or not. It's going to be about conspiracy to commit murder. That's what it's going to be about. Now, let me just explain this because I think this is relevant, and this is an Idaho criminal jury instruction. And this also goes into the capital case when they're talking about the aggravating factors and all of that. Malice may be expressed or implied. Malice is expressed when there is manifested a deliberate intention to unlawfully kill a human being. Number one, the killing resulted from an intentional act, which we all know there's nothing more intentional than chopping up a beautiful girl, burning her, and burying her in a pet cemetery. And we all know what happened to JJ. Number two, the natural consequences of that act are dangerous to human life. Oh, well, I think that was checked. Number three, the act was deliberately performed with knowledge of the danger to the victim and with conscious disregard for human life. That goes back to, what I said, I don't know if it was last time we were together or the time before, that even if Lori believed this, why do them the way they did them? Couldn't they, there's no, what's the word? There is no kind of just compassionate way to murder somebody, really. That's an oxymoron, but look at the way they did the children. It's and this talks, and knowing that she knows what happened to the children, you look at her behavior now, smiling. Like I've said before, y'all, I'd be damn devastated. I would absolutely be destroyed. I would be destroyed. And when it is shown that a killing resulted from the intentional doing of an act with express or implied malice, no other mental state need to be shown to establish the mental state of malice aforethought. So Archie's shit out of luck. The mental state constituting malice aforethought does not necessarily require any ill will or hatred of the person killed. So there you go. Lori can say, she could get on the stand and say, I thought the children, their spirits were being released. I thought it was a compassionate, beautiful thing, that they were going to go on to another planet and I would meet them in another life. The demon that took them over, I didn't want them to do that. So I was compassionate about it. Well, folks, the bottom line is it doesn't even require her to say, I wanted them dead. I wanted Chad all to myself. I didn't give a shit about Tylee or JJ anymore. I just didn't want Kay and Larry to have JJ. And Tylee was someone that I knew was going to come back to bite me about what me and Alex and Chad did to Charles Vallow. The word aforethought does not imply deliberation or the lapse of time, y'all. It only means that the malice must precede rather than follow the act. There you go. There you go on that. So, I'm going to read some of y'all's comments. We're going to see what we got here. I find it hard to believe that Chad's son didn't see them digging a grave for JJ or burning Tylee, says Maria P. And we're just going to have to find out, y'all. We're going to have to find out who is the state going to call. We see the witness list. We don't know what the defense's witness list is. We don't know what it is. Obviously, if one of his children, all of his children go on the stand to say Chad didn't know nothing. If Emma goes on the stand, just like she did at 48 Hours, and says, none of this would have ever happened if it wouldn't have been for Lori. My dad didn't do this. He was framed. Is that reasonable doubt? Could the state put Emma on and say that she was framed by Lori to make it look worse on Lori? I don't think the state would do that because they know they've got to try that son of a bitch down the road. They're not going to put Chad Daybell. There's no way they would ever put Chad Daybell. First of all, he wouldn't go on the stand in Lori's trial because he would incriminate himself. I mean, goodness sake, y'all. Audrea Baratario pleads the Fifth Amendment for one reason and one reason only. She didn't want to be implicated. She didn't want to be implicated. She was Lori's alibi, and so was Melanie P. I mean, we expect it from Melanie P. It's Audrey Baratario. If she goes on the stand, we're going to find out real quick, and you can be damn sure the defense is going to bring out. They're going to say to her, if she's on the stand and they cross her, they'll say, well, hey, you pled the Fifth Amendment at the grand jury. Why is that? Why would you do that? And what were you doing with Lori in Hawaii with Melanie P. and Lori during the time that Tammy was murdered? Lori was right there. Did you ever hear Lori say anything about Tammy? You think Audrey's going to say, yes, I heard Lori say that Alex and Chad were going to murder Tammy? Of course, she's not going to implicate herself. Think about that. It's just, it's incredible. Hey, Ron Hensley. If y'all have not seen Larry and Kay Woodcock's interview with Vinnie Politan, I've got it on the community wall. It's coming straight out exclusively from Difficult Research, Crush K. Easton. It's a great interview. I'd like for someone to interview Crush, to be honest with you. I think she should be able to be, if that's what she chose to do, I think she should get an interview. She's got a lot that I think to add to the dialogue. Warwick looked trapped on the stand. Will it come forth he had real information? Well, Mark McGarry, it depends on how good Archie and Thomas are. Because they're going to get to cross David Warwick and Melanie Gibb. And and it's going to go a hell of a lot further than old Jim Blossom, flash drinking John Pryor asking Melanie Gibb about whether she had been staying with David Warwick at his house, what he was implied on that, and also talking about their crazy beliefs. The bottom line is Archie and Thomas, they're going to give Lori a robust defense, and they are going to cross-examine the state's witnesses. Pure and simple. And you can be sure, when they get the law enforcement officials who did the initial investigations, the gathering of evidence, the chain of command and all that, Archie and Thomas obviously are going to try to say that it was a messed up investigation, that things were not done right, blah, blah, blah. They've got to. That's classic. They're going to go down this road to discredit law enforcement and the investigation and the exhibits, the audio. If Archie has his way next Wednesday, y'all, Lori's being transported over there to Fremont for a hearing. Y'all, I'm a little bit concerned at this point about Archie wanting to take the death penalty off the table. I've got a really, really strange feeling inside about it. Because let's just for sake of argument that the judge rules because of in his motion, he gives his reasons why the death penalty should be taken off the table. If the judge does rule that this capital case needs to not be a death penalty case, it will be because of the state and the way that they handle discovery. And it's going to, other than, I guess, the remedy, they say the least restrictive remedy of it would be that the discovery, the 13th discovery that's been turned over, there's so much in that I think the state is going to miss out on in all of it. At this point, unless Lori cops a plea agreement, she's going to trial, she's taking the stand. I think Archie is got an argument for some of this discovery, but I don't think that he's going to be able to keep Dr. Wellner out of this trial. The state has the burden, and I'm waiting on the state's response to his motions. It should come out by Monday or Tuesday anyway, before the hearing, but if not, they might have a verbal response at the hearing where they haven't filed their response yet. But that's going to be an important hearing. And again, March the 25th, y'all, she's not going to be in Madison County Jail anymore. She's going to be transported over to Ada County Jail. She's going to get settled in and get ready. They're going to get her all settled in for the trial that's happening on April 3rd. That's what, a week away. Well, let's see. I don't know. Let's see. What is, this is March 31st. So let's see. It's a little over a week. She's going to be at Ada County Jail before they get the trial underway, y'all. Oh yeah, Karen Holland. They'll put her in a bulletproof vest for sure. The judge can drop the death penalty and still go for life without parole because the initial was for the death penalty, and I agree with that, Tina Reddington. And again, this goes back to, what does the victim's family members want? And at this point, I think I can safely say that that Kresha, Larry, and Kay, they want this over and done with. I don't think that it matters to them much anymore as long as she never gets out of jail. I respect what they want. To me, either way, I look at it like this: there is no power but that of God, and the powers that be are ordained of God. How that works out, that's up to, it's up to all of that. But I'm set for any of it. What I know, and is not going to happen. It's not. She's not going to walk, and she's not going to be able to explain away all of the evidence. The jury members are going to be instructed on criminal intent. They're going to know what mens rea is, what was going on in her mind, and the only way to do that is if she took the stand. She could sit on the stand and lie all day long, but all the jury members have to do when she takes the stand and lies through her damn teeth is to look at the empirical evidence and see if her testimony corroborates it or is reasonable to believe what she's saying, which you and I both know it's not going to happen. If she doesn't take the stand, the state will lay out their case. The defense will be robust. Make no mistake, y'all. Archie and Thomas are going to go for the jugular on the state's witnesses. Pure and simple. Life in prison is actually worse than death, says Kathy Benya. Haunted says, if she gets off, I hope her attorneys are ready to house her in hiding for 10 years like Casey's. Ew. Haunted, there's no way. There's no way she's going to get out of this. No way. We know it. She knows it. She has to know it. But in some ways, I do believe she doesn't think she's going to be convicted because, listen, the only card that she had in her hand, she didn't take. She didn't use her mental health as a defense. And she could have. Why she chose the road she has, the bottom line is she doesn't want anyone to think that she's mentally ill. But I guarantee you she's going to have to deal with it come the penalty phase, sentencing. That's where Archie has made it clear we'll use her mental health in terms of sentencing. She won't have a problem with it then. He says that she's not going to be convicted, so it doesn't matter. Well, it's going to matter. And just as I said before, this originally was going to be a 10-week trial, but I think it's going to probably be wrapped up between 6 and 8 weeks now that Chad's not there and that John Pryor's not sitting right there too. You don't have 2 cross-examinations from 2 defense attorneys, etc., etc. She thinks she's hearing from some made-up angel, but it's a demon, says Karen Holland. Well, this goes back to Dr. Wellner. He's not a religious expert. He's not an expert in evil, says Archie, because Archie says there's not an expert in evil. And I haven't checked that out. I don't think there's anyone that can say, I am an expert in evil. But the state has made theirself clear. And as far as Archie, he would not put it in a legal document. He says specifically that the state just thinks she is pure evil. He doesn't say, they don't say pure evil. They say she's evil. That perhaps she doesn't have a mental illness. Well, she does have a mental illness. And that could be bared out, but it's not supposed to be in this trial. But Archie doesn't have to have a mental health defense for it to be bared out that she's a nut job. The state's kind of in a catch-22 because they're the ones that put in the indictment she endorsed religious beliefs for the purpose of murder. So they've got to show the jury her belief system. And the jury members are going to, anybody would. We've been talking about this for 2 damn years. Who the hell believes this shit? Who believes that those children were possessed by zombies? Who the hell thinks that it's the end of the freaking world? Who in the hell thinks that they are the ones that are going to usher in the 144,000 and that they're going to have the white tents set up and all this bullshit? The 7 missions to accomplish together crap. Give me a break. No, Maria P., they won't call Chad. Chad wouldn't. The state is going to rely on Chad Daybell, the same Chad Daybell that they're going to have to damn prosecute down the road? No way. No way. Chad wouldn't do it anyway. He would incriminate himself. If he said anything, just for sake of argument, he got on the stand, nothing he could say in terms of his knowledge of what happened. There's nothing he could say that would be outside of him knowing. He knew damn well. Even if someone wanted to believe that when they were walking down that sidewalk, where's the children, Lori? Where's the children? And Chad says, I didn't know nothing about it. Don't you think that when they ducked into that freaking hotel, that he'd be like, Lori, I know you and Alex said that the kids were off somewhere safe, but this is bearing down on us. We need to go to the police and let them know that the kids are fine, Lori. We've got to let someone know. But no, it was Chad Daybell that talked Lori out of talking about these things. And you can be sure that even Rob Wood, the prosecutor himself, was talking to Summer Shiflett saying that Chad talked Lori out of it. And that will be brought out in the defense. If Lori thought that the kids were dead or something happened to them, then why would she want to go to police? Why would Chad Daybell have to talk her out of it? Because Chad Daybell and Alex Cox murdered those children and Lori didn't know nothing about it. That's where that's going, y'all. You can be sure of it. Looking at what the defense has said about all this, that she had no participation, she didn't know, all of that. If they're going to stick to that, you got to wonder. Chad would have to waive his Fifth Amendment right to take the stand, and anything he says can and will be used against him, says KCL. Good point. Jay Blake says Chad Poe didn't tell the kids she had kids yet. He knew he was going to marry her and his kids would meet his. KCL says, in that phone call to Sweet Melanie, Lori said she knew where JJ was and that he was safe and happy. And yeah, KCL, that's true. But Lori could easily go on the stand and say, I did say that in the recording. Because Chad was sitting there right with me saying, don't worry, my queen. Alex and I have got Tylee and JJ off somewhere safe. They're safe. You don't need to worry about them, Lori. Have faith. You're the queen now, Lori. I'm the king. We have to accomplish these things, Lori. Don't worry about it. Have faith, Lori. The children are just fine. We've taken them somewhere where they're not going to ever have to worry about anything ever again. And you have to step up, Lori. The children were in the way of your mission, Lori. You said it yourself. They were in the way of your mission. So yes, Lori said that she knew where JJ was. What she was saying, in her view, is that Chad told her, not where specifically they were at, but that he was taking care of it, that Alex had taken care of it. She was just letting Melanie Gibb know there's nothing wrong. The kids are fine. They're perfectly safe. Think about that. That's right, We Do Recover. To my understanding, it was Chad telling him not to talk to police. And it was Lori that wanted to talk. Rob Wood said so. So if she, and obviously she could have talked to him and said a bunch of shit, a bunch of lies. We don't know that she was going to come clean and say, yes, the children there, they're off in their new planet now. Chad and I and Alex, we sent them to a new planet. Their physical bodies are gone now. Just because she said that she wanted to talk with law enforcement doesn't mean she was going to tell them the truth. But now that they don't know what she would have said, she can use that to her advantage. If I've got anything to hide, why? Why would I want to talk to law enforcement? You see, Chad, he talked me out of it. And he talked me out of it because he told me the kids were just fine. Carrie Ann says Rob Wood said to Summer that he had more on Lori than he did on Chad. There have got to be way more evidence than we all know about. And I agree with that, Carrie Ann. I agree on that. But I think the way more evidence is Lori just being the mother. I don't see anything that she could say or do to explain her relinquishing her mothering control over her children to Chad and Alex. They are sick people, Jay Hughes. Karen Holland says, I really want to see Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend go down. They knew far more and participated in this. And the defense is going to really, they're going to really do a number on Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. Because as far as Lori's concerned at this point, y'all, she's not going to tell Archie and Thomas anything that's going to make her look bad, but she's going to say a lot of things about Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. You heard it. I mean, that was the tip of the iceberg when she when Melanie Gibbs says, "Oh, you have a lot of these sexual thoughts," and Lori says, "You should really be the one to talk." You wait until the defense starts to discredit Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. Kathy Mama Bear says, "As a parent, if you tell me my kids are fine, safe, and happy, I'm still going to want to talk to them and make sure." And that's common sense, Kathy Mama Bear. Lori could go on the stand, or through defense cross-examining these witnesses, they could bring out that Lori left all of this in her king's hands. She felt like he was the one that, and her being the queen, the king and queen, that she had to listen to him, show her faith. And she had no idea that Chad and Alex were going to do these evil things to her children. She had no idea that it would end up like this. You see, I'm just telling you, I'm playing the devil's advocate here, y'all. That's all I'm saying. The only time my kids are fine and safe and happy is when they're no further than 20 feet from me, says Haunted. And think about it like this, y'all. Lori's going to probably come out in some way, shape, or fashion. I believe she's taking the stand. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. She's going to say, "I've been traveling all over the country. I had Care.com taking care of JJ from time to time. Tylee took care of JJ. I didn't have to be around my kids all the time. There are plenty of instances where I wasn't right there with them. I didn't have to be right there with the children to be a good parent. I was off doing other things that I felt like was my destiny. It was Chad telling everyone I was empty nester. I felt like the children were in the way of my mission, and Chad and Alex devised a way to let the children go off somewhere safe so that I could move forward in what Chad needed me to be. Y'all, she is diabolically evil. She will have answers for everything. Justice James says Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell will begin their 10-week trial on April 3rd, 2023, after it was postponed from January of 2023. A reiteration that y'all, a couple of weeks away. Can y'all believe it? It's going to happen, y'all. I hate it that we can't see her sitting in there sweating it out. This damn whore. Let's see. Save for her may have been in heaven with Jesus. So y'all, I just want to make clear, I think what I've made clear to y'all in all of this is that we have seen the diabolical nature of Lori Daybell. We've seen it. We've seen her actions through all of this. Even before Charles was murdered, how she operates. After she murdered Charles, after she murdered the kids, after she murdered Tammy, because in Idaho law, y'all, you conspire to murder, you get convicted of that, you get the sentence of actually murdering. So we've seen how she operates. You think she's going to operate any differently now? She's going to be just as diabolical as she's ever been. You can be sure of it, y'all. You can be sure of it. And we're going to, let me just say this while I'm thinking about it. Because we're not, I've made this available. I'm not asking you to come to the live stream. If you can, if you want to, you're welcome to. Every day they're going to be releasing the audio. And I don't see myself taking the audio and playing it for us. And then going from there. I don't know how I want to do this. Whether we all need to give ourselves enough time to listen to the audio of every day after it's released, and then get together late in the evening to go over, our notes and what we think has happened, what was said. Please leave it in the comments on the rewatch. You don't have to watch this again. How you think we should approach every day of the trial. The audio will be released later in the evening. I'm going to, if there's any live tweeting going on, we're going to put it on the community wall. How we need to go about doing it. Maria P. East Idaho News they'll get the audio every day of that day. So it's not a live feed. So it's just like these pre-trial things that have been going on. We get the audio later. I haven't figured out because I've never done that before. And so leave it in the rewatch comments because it won't show up here. How you think I should handle this? Because, like I said, I don't know. It's all up to all of y'all, really. If we can listen together, I would like that, says K-Tech. Well, here's the thing, though, K-Tech. If I was to play it, say I get a speaker and I replay it, that would all be first impressions of things. And I definitely wouldn't want to stop for comments in the middle. I think I don't know if I really like the idea of anyone coming here just to hear the audio. I think we should all hear the audio on our own, take notes or whatever our perspective is, and then get together later. That's what I think would be best because I'm not very good. I wouldn't be very good at listening to the audio for the first time with all of y'all without wanting to say something. And I know that none of y'all are going to want anyone to interrupt that audio. So what I'll do, this is what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to post the audio on the community wall. At the moment you see that, I mean, I'm sure you could get it from other news organizations or just get it yourself. You don't have to go to the community wall here, and you don't have to come on a live stream with me. All I'm saying is I'm going to post it on the community wall. If you want to go that route, listen to it. We'll schedule it for, like, say, an hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours later. Give us a chance to absorb it and all that, and then get together and talk about it. And on that audio post that I put on the community wall, you can start putting your comments in there. And what I'll do is I'll copy your comments and then I'll bring them out in a live stream. Because really what you have to say is most important as far as OKJ is concerned. KCL says, I'm bugged that the prosecution has been so slow to turn over discovery. Now evidence must be withheld because of it. KCL, we're going to find out on Wednesday. We're going to find out what the judge is going to allow and what he's not going to allow. This motion to limine. The only thing that I was really concerned with, now that I've had a time to think about it, this Dr. Wellner, to me, is going to be very important. Okay. So anyway, y'all, I want y'all to leave your comments. Remember this. The jury's going to have to really decide through the evidence whether Lori had criminal intent, what was going on in here. And that's got to be laid out by her behaviors, the exhibits, the text messages, the videos, the audio recordings, whatever. They're going to have to know during this whole testimony of all these witnesses, they're going to have to look and see, did she conspire with Chad Daybell and Alex Cox? Can we see proof in that? Are there healthy inferences toward that? So leave y'all's comments. Thank y'all all for being here. I love you all. We'll get back together soon. By Monday, I'm sure we're going to get a state's response on all of these motions coming up Wednesday. Y'all, March 25th, Lori's in Ada County in the jail there. And I hope that they serve her crap. Really. That's what I hope. I hope that this all comes out just as diabolical and evil as this wench is in the trial. Y'all are going to see a robust defense, y'all are going to be absolutely incensed by what Lori's going to try to pull on all of us. You'll see what I'm talking about. She's taking the stand. Get ready for it, y'all. Keep on looking. I love you.